What's going on, YouTubers? Wanted to share a little bit more of a personal story today, kind of inspired by Kevin. He's been sharing more personal stories and I thought I'd do the same. Definitely not on his level. I'm a little bit very much surface because he's sharing some deep stuff right there. That being said, I wanted to share my story of how I learned to be humble after not matching into a pharmacy residency. Alright, so for a general background, in pharmacy school I did very well, let's put it that way. I had a lot of great experiences, was very involved, and I did very well academically. So I was a really good pharmacy student. That in turn became a lot of arrogance, and that perpetuated into rotations. Lots of arrogance, right? During that time, I also started to paint a picture in my mind that like networking, people, relations, none of that mattered. All that mattered was that I was better than everyone and I was smarter than everyone. It was a very toxic mentality that I had at the time, and when I reflect back, you know, I sometimes hate myself. I'm a little disappointed, to be honest, that I had that kind of mentality. Because of that mindset though, I applied to very top name programs like Detroit, Kentucky, and UNC, which were respectively my number 1, number 2, and number 3 ranked programs that I really wanted to go to. Now, that was like during the December time frame when you did mid-year and then you're doing your applications. Now fast forward to that time frame where everyone's getting interviews, and I'll recount an experience that was the first beginning steps of my humbleness training, if you will. Sometime in January, I was on rotations at Shane's Medical Center, and it was like 5 or 6 a.m. I was working out my patients and I got an email. The email was from Kentucky, and it was basically went off and said, blah blah blah, there were a lot of great candidates and it's unfortunate but we cannot offer you an interview. And I was like, wow, I spent all this time. They had a lot of material, by the way, a lot of supplemental materials. I did a lot of work trying to talk to them and stuff, and it didn't work. I was like, okay, 1 out of 7, that's all right, got 6 more. So then the day goes by and it's about lunchtime, right? And I was eating lunch and I checked my email again and I got another email. This time it was from, Detroit. And it was the exact same thing. Basically, there are a lot of great candidates out there. It's unfortunate, but we cannot give you an interview at this time. And I was like, wow, this was my number 1 program, and I was not able to get an interview. So I was really disappointed at the time, and when I went home that day, I really wanted to kind of de-stress. So I went to the gym. It was like 6 or 7 p.m. that night, I remember. And I was working out and I had my phone with me and I checked my phone and I got another email. And this time it was from UNC. And again, the same kind of things were said where, it's unfortunate, a lot of great candidates, but we couldn't offer you an interview. And I was like, wow, this is like the worst freaking day ever. I was completely blown away and everything was shattered. But at that same time, I started to earn my bits of humbleness. But that didn't last very long, because fast forward to a couple months later, in match day specifically, I did get a couple interviews and I flew out and interviewed. So that kind of increased my confidence again. But fast forward to match day, and I remember it was like 5 or 6 a.m. and it was like on Facebook, it was blowing up. Everyone like got their match results. I was like, all right, I know what's up. I opened my email and I saw the email. I was like, I saw it, but I couldn't click it. And I was just like thinking the whole time. And I still had that arrogant mentality, and I was like thinking, where did I match? I was like, there's 4 other programs out there. And I was like, it could have been any one of those. And I was like, is it this one? Is it this one? Like, which one could it be? And at that time, I wasn't really thinking of not matching. It was more so where I was gonna match. Like, I never once thought that I would not match. And then I checked the results. It ended up being like a few hours later. It took forever. And I didn't match. you know, I still remember that. I was just staring at the screen and I was just reading it. And I was kind of blown away. I was just like complete shock. I didn't match. It hit me pretty hard. And you know, at that time I hit like this low and I didn't know what to do with myself. But you know, in those certain times, you know, reality hits and I was like, yo, I need a job. I'm graduating in 2 months and I don't have a single thing lined up. I don't have a job and I'm gonna have to pay all these loans back. I didn't have retail connections. I didn't really want to work in retail, and it was bad. I was like stuck in a very bad situation. What made it worse the next day was that we had an online class, right? And everyone logs in with their name, and that particular day, everyone logged in with the institution they matched into, followed by their name. And when the instructor came in, they're like, you know, what's going on? And everyone's just telling her about match day. You know, everyone's excited. There's congratulations exchanged, and I was just quiet that day. I felt so down. And the next couple of days, a couple of things happened. So the first thing was that 2 of my really close friends came over, Sylvia and Robert. Despite me telling them to not come over, I'm good, they came over anyways. Big shout out to you guys because I definitely needed that, and it was certainly a very nice gesture. Some of the things I remember talking to them about was, you know, about the scramble process. You know, now that, you know, you didn't match, you have the option of pursuing the scramble, which is basically filling the unmatched positions. And literally, it's like a scramble. It's like a rush to apply and calls and email. It was crazy. But the thing was also, this was the first year that the scramble actually moved online. So that was going to be a new, unique experience. Also at that time, I remember exchanging quite a few texts and phone calls with 2 of my other good friends, Mark and Ryan. And both of them checked on me throughout this process. I also remember looking into various MPH programs, but I still wasn't 100% committed at the time. I had a lot of interest, but you know, I don't know, I just felt like I was lost at the time. And I also remember applying to one hospital job, but never really heard back. Ultimately though, after talking to all my different friends, they convinced me that, you know, the scramble process is something you should try and you should consider. The thing was though about the scramble process was that it was very daunting. You know, there was 1,500 unmatched candidates and 150 spots. It was crazy. So you have like a 10% chance of getting it, and not all those spots that are listed are even spots you might want, and they're like different PGY-1 types of residencies. Some of them were like community residencies, managed care residencies. Those weren't things I wanted. So it was just very daunting. And I think my thoughts initially about not wanting to do it, because I didn't want to do the scramble process, was that I think I was afraid of rejection. You know, getting rejected again. You know, how horrible is that? So fast forward, you know, 1 to 2 weeks later, and down like $300 to $400 because I applied to like a ton of programs, 12 to 15 different programs, and you had to drop like mad money to even apply. It was crazy, and it led to 1 interview. Everyone else rejected me. I got 1 interview. Surprisingly, this is the craziest thing and something I always think about until this day. The institution that gave me an interview was Detroit Medical Center, which was my #1 choice going into the match. I was actually one of 3 candidates being considered for that position, as I was informed by a close source at the time. But crazy, right, to think I was one of 3. The problem though was that they needed me to fly out like literally the very next day, because it was like either a Sunday or Monday, and the interview was going to be on Wednesday. And I remember I had to fly out. I literally had to fly out, and the flights were like $600 to $800. So if you guys don't know, if you're a pharmacy student and you're usually pretty broke, and $600 to $800 is a lot of money, especially for taking a chance on something that might not happen. Maybe it was me being scared of just being rejected. I mean, you think about it, right? There were 2 other candidates there, and I was told that both of them were from Detroit. So they probably already knew the professors, they knew the preceptors, they knew everyone there. They had a way better chance than me. I think I was just so scared of being rejected again. And you know, even with the money aspect, everyone was like, don't worry, I'll pay for you, go, this is like an amazing opportunity. And you know, I talked to the director. I couldn't bring myself to spend the money. And you know what, thinking about it now, maybe it wasn't the money, I was just scared of rejection. I didn't want to be rejected again. But I did ask the director, I was like, you know, would a Skype, FaceTime, or a call, something like that suffice? And she said no, you know, if we were to make a decision on this, we really want to choose the next resident based on the on-site interview. So as sad, and I want to say I regret it. It still hurts to this day, but I rejected the interview. I said, you know, I can't spend this much money to fly out there. So I turned that interview down. And ultimately, after I think that was probably about 2 weeks of scrambling and applying, I'm left with nothing. I have literally no interviews anymore. I need to reapply to new programs if I want another shot. As sad as it was, Mark and Ryan were really coaching me through the process, and one of the programs that was listed on there was Sarasota, which was a Florida program, and one of the only Florida programs, if I recall, that had a spot open for the PGY-1. And you know, they said they knew that I really wanted my training to be outside of Florida. I didn't want to stay in Florida. I wanted to get training outside. But they talked to me. They were like, you know, what about Sarasota? You know, even though you don't want to be in Florida, why don't you give it a shot? You even know the people there. You know, you did rotations there, and I did. I did 2 rotations there, and I had a great experience. But part of me wanted, you know, outside experiences, and I just wanted something different. But ultimately, and I can't thank them enough for this, they convinced me to apply and basically see how it goes. You know, just feel it out. You know, don't just turn down an experience. This really is a pivotal step. The next thing you know, I applied. I got a phone interview, which was quickly escalated to an on-site interview because I was in Florida, which was great. So being in state certainly helped. Probably also being a known face. You know, I had 2 months there, and I think I did pretty well in those rotations. So they knew who I was, and they knew a little bit about me already. But they gave me an on-site interview. I interviewed. It was a great experience, brought back a lot of memories, and best feeling ever. I got offered the position the very next day. I still remember that day so vividly as I was walking from the Health Science Center back to the commuter parking lot. And I learned so much from that one moment in time. I never tear up over anything. Most of my friends would say I'm pretty emotionless or cold, but that day I was not. And I remember Ryan treated me to lunch that day, and of course, as a millennial, I posted this great post on Facebook, which I would say is one of my best posts because, as evidenced by the amount of Facebook likes. Overall, when I found that out, I felt such an overwhelming sense of appreciation, and most importantly of all, I felt a true sense of humbleness. That was probably the most painful 3 weeks I've ever gone through, but it worked out in the end. And I'll probably save the story for another time, but you know, my experience at Sarasota, I want to say, turned me into one of the best informatics candidates as I applied for PGY-2 programs. And I say this because I contrast this with my experience in applying to PGY-1s, in which I applied to 7 programs, got 3 interviews, and got 0 matches. Compared to when I applied to PGY-2's programs, applied to 7 programs, got 7 interviews, and even had to reject 1 interview because I had too many. I know that probably isn't the most humble thing to say, ironically, but what I really want to do is highlight my appreciation towards everyone at Sarasota for, you know, mentoring me and training me and helping me grow into the informatics candidate at that time and the informatics pharmacist I am today. overall, this experience really has taught me a lot in terms of being humble. I can still get arrogant from time to time, it's not good, but I'll make sure I humble check myself. Not even sure if that's a word, but you know, I try to stay as humble as I can and be as humble as I can from day to day, you know, and I use, you know, things like this and I replay it in my mind to make sure I stay humble. Alright guys, so hopefully I'm able to influence some of you guys to, you know, be humble in your day-to-day life. It's certainly a great trait to have and something that will take you very far. And with that being said, until next time. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in and watching the video. If you like the content, definitely hit the ImproRx button over to your left to subscribe, and definitely check out more videos over here to your right. Now, as always, if you have questions, comments, and even better, suggestions for future videos, definitely let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, until next time guys,